Hi, morning everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this, the third day of NAPA Arts in Care Week. I'm Alison Teeder and I manage the NAPA Arts in Care Homes programme. And all this week we're sharing about the important role of the arts, creativity and cultural participation in care provision. And we're sharing lovely stories. Please share your stories throughout the week using our hashtag AICH 2023. It's down there on the screen, and help us shine a spotlight on this important work. So we often, when we're talking about arts in care homes, we often look at how can we involve people that are put off by the word art, and that can be staff and residents, and lots of people that word puts them off. And one of the art forms that actually we found is really accessible is storytelling and creative writing. It's a great way of getting people involved that aren't so interested in visual arts. So today I'm really excited to be talking to Nichola Charalambou from Creative Rights. And here she comes. Hi, Nichola.
Hi, good morning, Alison.
Morning, lovely to see you. And we're going to be sharing 3 lovely ideas developed from Nichola's practice, which we think could be really fun ways of care settings, doing stuff around storytelling and creative writing. So morning, Nichola, lovely to see you.
You too, Alison. So shall I start with our first idea?
Did you want to first just tell us just a little bit about Creative Rights and your kind of involvement in work in care settings and what you're doing now? We'd love to hear that.
Of course. So I set up Creative Rights in 2009, and it was really a way of making writing and poetry, reading poetry, more accessible and more fun. So the focus was on the process itself and less on the critique and the feedback side of things. And I really wanted to build a writing community. So I'm really proud that that's still growing several years later. One of the kind of main areas of my work has become working out in the community, and I got involved with working in care settings through Central and Cecil, now known as C&C Social Housing Trust, where we first met Alison. And I started to run read aloud poetry sessions and also creative writing in sheltered housing schemes. But I know we're going to talk about that a bit more later.
Brilliant. Yes, lovely. So should we get straight in? And before we start on our first idea, if there are any questions out there from people watching, please do put them in the chat and we'll try and respond to them. But our first idea, Nichola, it's a lovely idea. Quote for the day. Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, I was keen to get that one started, wasn't I? Yeah, so this was all inspired by us chatting about all on the board. So some of you may be aware of them already. They're very active on social media. We've got the links coming up here, which is great. So there's a series of books, and this is from 2 guys who work at TfL, and they decided a few years back now to start writing inspirational quotes. I think most days at different stations around London. So we've taken inspiration from that, and I've just got a few examples of how you can use this with your residents. So in your groups. So I've demoed one about tea, which is universally appreciated. So this is from All on the Board, the beauty of tea. And you can get a small whiteboard or a big whiteboard or a chalkboard. It doesn't matter. But I've demoed one here. The beauty of tea. Put the kettle on and make a cuppa. It's a perfect lifter upper. And that was from one of the chapters in the book. So they've helpfully divided it into different chapters. And that one came under random treasures and simple pleasures. Really nice. Great. Yeah. So I'll give you just some other examples. So there's one that comes onto mental health. There will always be a better day. there will always be another way. So that's a nice kind of theme to perhaps think about. And there's a whole section on legends. So, you know, our heroes, our
Yeah.
legends, people we look up to. That's a great conversation starter as well. There's one on Princess Diana, and I'll just read the first 2 lines. Carry
Mhm.
out a random act of kindness. One day, someone might do the same for you. So you
Oh,
could just take a couple of lines from all on board quotes, but
yeah.
you could also, you know, invent your own quotes. So you could perhaps think of a theme like seasons and
Mm.
discuss this with your group, or even if it's one to one, and then you could come up with quotes together and write on the chalkboard or whiteboard, and that could inspire everyone else for the day. Or you
It
could research, there's tons of social media with inspirational quotes for the day, and that you could take from those. So it's a lovely conversation starter. It's a really nice way, as we were saying, of checking in and just
mm.
setting the tone for the day. So that could be a daily or weekly practice. It doesn't matter.
It's such a nice idea. We're thinking, get your own whiteboard or a chalkboard. There'll be someone in your care setting who likes writing and would enjoy writing that up. There always is.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
could print them out and stick them on, and just having it around, just like, I mean, the whiteboards we see in stations, I'm sure loads of people watching this will have seen one, and it just lifts your day, doesn't it? Or it makes you think about something. And that's what
absolutely.
this is. It's a little bit of inspiration to kind of take you somewhere else, to start a discussion. It sparks off memories, doesn't it? It's such
Yeah.
a lovely idea. I really like that one.
And just something else to throw in there. Sometimes one of the guys at TFL, he loves to draw. So sometimes he'll do a little sketch. You've probably seen them on the boards. So
Mm,
that's, if you've got a larger board, then obviously that's lovely as well. Someone might want to do a little sketch that relates to the quote.
really nice, a doodle, a caricature,
Yeah,
or really lovely. That's a great one. So if you try any of these ideas out, please let us know. We'd love some feedback afterwards. But that's a way that you could just have the quote there. Everyone in your care home or care setting can see it, get involved, change it every week or every day if you're really keen, have seasonal things. Lovely. So that's our first one. Now, the next one, am I allowed to have favourites, Nichola? I'm not sure if I'm allowed to have favourites, but I
go
do
on.
really, really like this one.
We
Um,
won't tell anyone.
I'll tell you why in a minute, but this one I think is a great one for getting the imagination going. So this one is, and I think it's the title I love, Lost Property Bag. So can you tell
Hmm.
us about this one, Nichola?
Shall I show one I've prepared earlier?
Yes, please.
so so this again, really easy to do. I love luggage tags, so you can get a bunch of luggage tags, and I've just jotted down lost property on the luggage tag. You can have a big old bag, uh shamelessly showing my creative rights bag there. You
We'll
can
let
have
you.
you can have a bag or a box or a suitcase,
Yeah,
doesn't matter. Collect a few random objects.
yeah,
Staff can bring them in. You could even invite residents to contribute an object, so it can be on a more personal level too. I'll just quickly show you some, just to show you how random my collection is. A little bracelet there,
yeah,
a hat there,
yeah,
and then I'll just demo how I've used the tags.
yeah.
So what I've done, as well as putting a lost property tag on the bag or box, you
Mhm.
can attach tags that encourage discussion. So you're basically asking questions.
Yeah.
So it makes it much more interactive. And it's nice to have smaller objects. They don't all have to be small enough to put in your hand, but it makes it a lot easier because then you can give them to the resident or to your group members, and it's more tactile, isn't it? And they can hold it. So I've done that. Small objects, for example, pair of spectacles, and I've attached "Write my story." Okay. Or if you're not writing, just talk about my story. What's my story? That's another question. What's my story? So prompts or questions.
And so when you say what's my story, I mean, I'm thinking who did they belong to? I'd be really
Exactly.
annoyed if I'd lost my glasses. I'd be absolutely lost without them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So where do you think this was found? You know, so it's a whole story about it being lost. Where do you think this was found? Who did it belong to? What was its purpose? Where, obviously this is obvious, but it's not always as obvious. What was its purpose? Where does it come from? It could tell you directly about its life. You know, I was a gift to, I belong to. So the idea of kind of the object telling its story, of talking to you, which is great fun. I'll just give another example.
Yeah. I love this one. I think it really gets the imagination going for me straight away. And I can just say, Nichola, before you show the next one, one of the reasons I like this is because it reminds me of my old favorite program I used to watch, Bagpuss. Does anyone remember Bagpuss, where they had the objects and they had their story? Sorry, but show us your next one, Nichola.
Yeah, I remember that. So just an everyday object, just a watch.
Yeah.
And I've just written an example on the tag, "Write I am in my voice." So again, that's just encouraging to talk from the point of view of the object. But you can go wider than that. You know, like I said, if you're using a personal object from a resident, they will have probably that attachment and that story. So that's another way in as well. You don't have to make things up. It could just be a way of them expressing why that object is important to them. So there's lots of ways into this, but I think just having a kind of general lost property bag or box is just a really nice way of engaging people.
And as you say, you could put up a poster asking people, can you donate things for our lost property bag? Charity shops, but residents, their precious objects, but also relatives can bring things in. And lovely. And did you have a suggestion of a poem linked to that, I think?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of wonderful poems about objects, but the one that I know you and I were talking about recently, Alison, is by our wonderful poet laureate, Simon Armitage. And the poem is 10 Pence Story. So that is the journey of a 10 pence piece, which understandably falls into lots of different hands, exchanged in lots of different places and hands, and it's about his journey. So for example, he's talking about being fished out from a phone box, you know, the days where we would actually put coins into the phone box. So that's 10 Pence Story by Simon Armitage.
And I think we'll share that link in the chat, because what you could do as part of this is actually have a poem like that linked. And this is a good one for this lost property bag, you know, idea. Read out the poem, get people to talk about that. And Nichola, can you talk a bit more about, because I know you've used poems as prompts a lot and short stories in the read aloud sessions that you've done we worked in a care home with people living with dementia. Can you talk a little bit about those read aloud sessions?
Yeah, I'd love to. So it was great kind of devising those with you, Alison, and I think we've really grown to love them. I think it's just such a beautiful way in, even if you're new to a group. So the facilitator, who could be, you know, a staff member or someone from the outside like me, or a volunteer, or we even got relatives involved sometimes, could choose a poem. and that, again, I sometimes worked along themes, so this backs up what we're saying. So the poem we're talking about is Tenpence Story by Simon Armitage, because that links in with the lost property and objects idea. But you could obviously have all sorts of themes, like, you know, seasons and friendship and holidays and love, and, you know, you go anywhere you want, really. And the idea is that I would suggest that the facilitator, whoever that may be, would read the poem first. So read aloud, read the poem first, but give everyone a copy of accessible print, so that they can read it when the time comes. So the facilitator reads it, you have an initial discussion. There can maybe be a scribe who has a big sheet of paper and just jots down the comments from the group. That's really lovely. And we've even turned the comments into a poem, like kind of group poem. It's great fun and really easy to generate. So you would get the initial responses, and then you might invite someone else in the group to read the poem. It's lovely to hear different voices. And then, this is great fun, it suddenly felt like I was kind of conducting some orchestra or choir. I would count everyone in, say on 3, and we would all read the poem together. And I think it's just so powerful. And I know we're working with people all different stages, and some people may not feel able to read from the sheet, but it doesn't matter. Just kind of joining in when they can. It may be a poem that's familiar to them, so they may not need to read. They may be reciting from memory, which is very powerful as well, or just listening to their friends read it. That, you know, it's really lovely. It's I find it really engages everybody, whether they're reading or not, just hearing the poem.
And having that offer of to be encouraged to read, but also hearing different words, the magic of poetry, which captures things in such a lovely way. You get some lovely, lovely things happening from that. And it's a very simple offer, but it can take you into all kinds of interesting memories and sharing views and reflections. So
absolutely
lovely. And I think what another care setting actually mentioned to me during one of our NAPA groups was that they use they often go to a YouTube link of famous actors reading out poems. I think the famous one, Richard Burton, reading out who would that be? I can't. My mind's gone blank on. He reads some of those lovely Welsh poems.
Right. Yeah.
It's gone blank of who it is, but there's a link, and I think NAPA will share a link to this YouTube of actors reading out poems, because people enjoy that as well, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really accessible way to get poetry, you know, literally at your fingertips. What something else I know we were talking about, Alison, was that groups that I've worked with over the years tend to be really interested in the authors or poets. Like that, it was very unlikely that I didn't get that question in a group. Who wrote this, and, you know, where are they from, and, you know, what do they look like? And so we had great fun. I'd often try and take a tablet or iPad, or if not, maybe the home will have one, or the centre, and you do a bit of research, so you can show them it's really easy to get an image of a poet or author, so you show that to the group. They often want to know when they were alive. Are they still alive? You know, where were they born? Really, really interesting. And so we'd all research together. I'd sometimes prepare beforehand, but it's nice to research together and have a chat about that. And then if you're really lucky, you might be able to get the actual poet reading their work. So either video or just audio. There's loads of different poetry websites. So sometimes you just get an audio, but obviously on YouTube you get both. And you don't always get the original poet read. It's not always possible, depending on when they live. Yeah, exactly. But like you said, there's loads of kind of actors, or just everyday people that have made wonderful recordings because of
And
their passion for the poem.
that power of accents, different
Yeah,
age voices, but also what you said, that biography angle. I think we're going to talk about that a bit on Friday when I talk about art history, because I've seen that a lot, that people, and that's
yeah,
a great way of involving people that have a more general interest in history. You know, they're not so interested in art, but they've got you always get one, don't you? In
yeah,
every
yeah,
session,
you
there's someone
do.
who's got amazing knowledge about history, or then starts expanding on the subject with their connections and recollections. So it's a way of involving more people, isn't it?
Absolutely, and this is it. You know, I had someone in a group that was only interested in reading Shakespeare, and that was interesting. So I obviously I couldn't take in Shakespeare all the time,
Yeah,
but it was very interesting how engaged he was when we did read a sonnet or whatever.
yeah,
But also, it is an opportunity to broaden people's horizons if they're open to that as well. And like you said with the discussions, I mean, it can go anywhere.
yeah.
It's such a good starting point.
It
It
really
really
is.
is.
And
Yeah.
like you say, for every person that loves their Shakespeare, there's going to be someone that loves Pam Ayres and Spike
Yeah.
Lee, and
Oh, they love all that as well.
be led by your groups, and they
Yes.
don't have to like it. You can read something and, oh, I don't like that. Why don't you like it?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
open for discussion.
Yeah, and
Wonderful.
don't feel you have to kind of stick to rhyming poems or,
Yeah.
short poems or it I mean, it's great to have a bit of, rhyme, and it's lovely to read together, but you can widen the horizons as well, and
Challenge the group a bit with,
yeah.
you do some lovely modern poems, that lovely. So there's lots of ideas out there.
Mm.
And we'll be sharing later on, I think, a resource where we've got some more ideas for different poems. But shall we get on to our third idea, Nichola? And I
Yes.
think this is another really nice, simple one. And I think this one is around daily reflections.
Yeah, so I guess kind of similar idea to the all on the board
Yeah.
kind of quotes, but this can be kind of shorter and um kind of a snappier way of checking in, I suppose. And this
Yeah.
is actually, we were talking about this as well as being a possible team building idea for
Yeah.
staff,
Hmm.
and possibly residents and one-to-ones as
Hmm.
well as a group setting similar to the read aloud perhaps. So the idea is just to have some large post-its, so
Yep.
really easy to get as well, like the luggage tags, very easy. And it is nice ideally as a daily check-in, but if you can't do it every day, it doesn't matter. And just to write openings like this says I feel,
Hmm.
and then the resident would tell you how they're feeling, and then you or them just write it. So I feel tired, I feel happy. Yeah, it can be one word or a longer sentence. I feel
Mm,
excited about going out today, or whatever it
mhm.
is. So I feel, I am, I remember, I like, I'm thinking of, I want. So again, go back to the tea, want a cup of tea. So just it's a really fun, easy check-in. And then if it opens up to a wider discussion, then fine. But it's a really nice way of kind of individualizing and giving attention to
Yeah,
somebody.
yeah. And we've been getting some lovely comments. Thanks for people sending their comments in. And like you say, this one is so quick and easy. You can get all kinds of different post-its in different shapes. People
Yeah,
love the bright colors. Have some pens. You can get
yeah,
the smelly pens. My kids always love
yeah.
those. Have fun, and and just quick, but to get used to doing that maybe every day, or do it in your team building, do
Hmm.
it at a relatives meeting. It's just a lovely way again, and it's a way for people to be heard, to share their feelings and voices. But it also, I love the way you put, I feel, I am, I remember, I like, I want. And these all can lead to more. You can develop this into more. They could be developed
Yeah,
into stories.
yeah,
you will always find people that have a flair for these things, and just a little prompt. Do they want to write a short story? You could turn it into a play. Would you like to do a play with your care setting?
Yeah.
So from the post-it notes, or from the lost objects, or from the quote, if it really gets people going, encourage that.
Yeah. And you could collect it on a, you know, if you have a big, I've seen some care homes with lovely displays in the hallway, but it doesn't have to be kind of polished or take a lot of time. You can just have a big pin board and just stick things up afterwards. So you can have a collection of post-its up there, or some quotes for the day, as well as doing it on the whiteboards or chalkboards. So you can see how residents are being engaged.
And when you go into care homes that do have those type of boards, I've been to lots, it really lifts you as you go by as a visitor, to see something, a little creative prompt, which takes you somewhere else, which inspires some thought. And that's what we're talking about, really, isn't it? Bringing creativity into every corner of your care setting, trying to embed it so that every day, and some of these things you could do quite easily every day without having to prepare. With this one, all you need is your post-its and a pen. You're feeling tired, all of you, you know, not very, it's just a gentle thing, or you're planning something. It's very accessible, isn't it?
So I feel tired, and then just have a chat about that. There's no pressure at all.
Lovely. I love that. I wonder if we've got any questions from our attendees. Ooh, we have. So this one is: some of our residents can't hold pens to write themselves. Does this matter when doing creative writing activities? I mean, you've touched on that a bit, haven't you, Nichola, with having a scribe? But is there anything else you'd say about that, really?
I mean, I've come across that quite a bit in the work I've been doing, and that's completely fine. I mean, ideally there would be someone to scribe, or sometimes people don't necessarily feel able to write sentences, but they can just kind of doodle or write their name, or kind of contribute to in some way, but it really doesn't matter. I think the most important thing is really just to have everybody involved, and even if no one writes anything down, it doesn't matter, because it's a storytelling exercise, like with the objects, or it's a read aloud exercise with the poetry. So I mean, it all started, you know, before people were writing. There was storytelling around the campfire, wasn't there? So it's still using the imagination and engaging people, even if the words don't get put down on paper.
Definitely. But I think also some of the ideas you've shared it is also a great way to encourage people that do like doodling, or, you know, to write your name. Or I always remember Sylvie Silver from NAPA, who first got me into doing this, always said people in care settings should always have access to a pad to jot notes on, or doodle, or write lists, or do their signature. And it's just these things encourage us to keep using skills, and it sparks off creativity. So, you know, those people that do like writing, there'll be some people with amazing handwriting. I've always found that, with that beautiful copper plate. Get them to scribe or involved somehow. Wonderful. Absolutely lovely. So I think, I mean, we've shared 3 great ideas. So let's just a reminder of what they were. They were the quote for the day, all on the board. They were the lost property bag, and the daily reflections. We'll share more stuff on social media about that. I think we're going to share, you've done a nice little fact sheet, which I think NAPA will share. But just any last thoughts? I think you and I were talking a little bit. Our theme for this year's National Day of Arts in Care Homes is reflections.
Yeah.
We're looking back over the first 5 years of the Arts in Care Homes programme. We're looking back at how can we embed the arts in care. But you and I were talking about the importance for an artist, a facilitator, a staff member, a volunteer to reflect after a creative session.
Yeah, so kind of, I guess I've built up that practice over the years, partly, the people that the organizations that you work for often ask for some kind of reflection or feedback. And I think it's actually a really helpful practice just to allow yourself some time to reflect on how it went, what went really well, what could maybe be changed or improved for next time. If you have had a chance to write down people's comments, responses, even if people are non-verbal, did they smile? Did they look like they were paying attention to the poem? We've got lots of those lovely anecdotes over the years, haven't we, Alison?
We
of
have.
People responding in ways that weren't kind of your traditional kind of response, but meant so much to us because it showed that they were engaged. So and enjoying themselves. So just a chance to reflect on all that, really. It's kind of like keeping a journal, but it doesn't have to be lengthy, just to give yourself a few minutes after each session to reflect, and if you want to write it down and collect any responses from the group.
It's so helpful for developing your own practice, but it can also be helpful for gathering anecdotes for those CQC visits to share with relatives. And like you said, it's not just the verbal. We all know that they're little other non-verbal cues that you can really see that you're connecting with people. Yeah. And I just want to finish with a memory of one of your sessions, Nichola. You probably know which one I'm going to share, but we did a lovely read aloud session in one of the homes we work with. And as we left, there was a beautiful woman who was engaged and, talking about the session. And you left her, and it was actually a short story we did that time. It wasn't a poem. And you left her with her copy with large print. And I'll always remember her sat in the window of this particular home with the sun coming down on her, with her reading, chuckling away to herself. And just absolutely absorbed and in the moment. We don't know what she was thinking, but she was in that precious, lovely space that creativity can take us to.
Absolutely.
And to me, that's a key memory of your sessions. So
yeah, it's there's simple pleasures in it, isn't it? It's
absolutely, which bring real meaning and you bring meaning to people's lives and happiness. So thank you so much, Nichola.
Thank you. Thanks for
I say a lot of those ideas, they'll have been shared in the chat. I'll also we'll be sharing some stuff on social media, so keep an eye out. If you try any of the ideas, please let us know. Send us an email, send us a post, share your stories using the hashtag, and help us all celebrate the massive power that the arts have in care provision to bring meaning, happiness, well-being to everyone involved, really.
And happy 5th birthday to Arts in Care.
Thank you so much, Nichola. It's been lovely, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Take care. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.